The lone human soldier Vincent Cook crouched behind a crumbling wall, his eyes fixed on the young Brunali female lying motionless in the debris-strewn street. She was different from the other aliens he'd encountered, smaller, with mottled skin that marked her as an outcast among her own kind. Vincent's muscles tensed as he weighed his options. Every instinct screamed at him to stay hidden, to let the alien die. But something deeper, more quintessentially human, refused to let him abandon her. In the ravaged streets of New York City, the brutal Brunali invasion had reduced Earth's mightiest metropolis to smoking ruins. Towering alien warships loomed overhead, their energy weapons cutting through the polluted air as they hunted down the last pockets of human resistance. The Brunali's technological superiority had overwhelmed Earth's defenses in a matter of weeks, leaving only scattered groups of survivors fighting a desperate guerrilla war. Vincent knew the risks. If he revealed himself to save the alien girl, he'd be exposing himself to the Brunali search parties, methodically exterminating human holdouts. But as he watched her shallow breathing, he made his choice. In one fluid motion, he vaulted over the wall and sprinted to her side. The alien's eyes fluttered open as Vincent gently lifted her. What are you doing?" she rasped in halting English, her voice a mix of fear and disbelief. "Saving your life," Vincent grunted, hefting her over his shoulder as he scanned for cover. "I'm Vincent. What's your name?" "Vox," she replied weakly, still struggling to comprehend why a human would risk everything to help her. "But why would you—" Her words were cut short as a Brunali energy blast sizzled past, narrowly missing them. Vincent broke into a run, zigzagging through the ruins as a patrol unit gave chase. He could feel Vox tense against him, torn between her ingrained hatred of humans and the undeniable fact that this one was risking everything to save her. As Vincent ducked into the remains of a subway tunnel, his mind raced. He needed to get Vox to safety, but more importantly, he had to reach the human resistance's hidden base. During their frantic escape, Vox had let slip crucial information about Brunali weaknesses, information that could turn the tide of the war. But with elite Brunali soldiers led by Commander Krav, Vox's former betrothed, closing in on their location, time was running out. Deep beneath the city, in a fortified bunker, Earth's remaining military leaders prepared a desperate counteroffensive. They'd received intelligence that the Brunali invasion force was commanded by High General Zex, Vox's father, who sought to eradicate humanity and claim Earth's resources for the Brunali Empire. The humans' last hope lay in experimental weaponry, untested but potentially capable of leveling the playing field against the technologically superior invaders. As Vincent carried Vox deeper into the labyrinth of tunnels, he realized that his impulsive act of compassion had set in motion a chain of events that would determine not only humanity's fate, but also challenge long-held beliefs on both sides about the nature of their intergalactic conflict. The human soldier and the alien outcast, unlikely allies in a war-torn world, now held the key to reshaping the future of two species. With Brunali forces closing in and the fate of Earth hanging in the balance, Vincent tightened his grip on Vox and pressed on into the darkness. Their journey had only just begun, but already it promised to redefine the very notion of humanity in a universe where compassion might prove to be the most powerful weapon of all. Vincent's lungs burned as he pressed deeper into the maze of tunnels beneath New York City. Vox's slight form burdened immensely on his shoulder, her labored breathing a constant reminder of the precarious nature of their escape. The dank air filled with the echoes of distant explosions and the screech of Brunali energy weapons. As they rounded a corner, Vincent nearly collided with a group of figures emerging from the shadows. He instinctively reached for his weapon, but froze as he recognized the unmistakable outline of human silhouettes. "Hold it right there," a gruff voice commanded. A tall, muscular man with a scarred face stepped forward, his rifle trained on Vincent. "Who the hell are you, and what are you doing with one of them?" Vincent slowly lowered Vox to the ground, keeping his hands visible. "I'm Vincent Cook, former Army Ranger. This is Vox. She's injured and needs help." The leader's eyes narrowed as he took in the sight of the alien girl. "Sergeant Marcus Kane, 5th Infantry Division. You better have a damn good explanation for bringing a Brunali into our territory." Vincent quickly recounted their harrowing escape and the vital intelligence Vox possessed. Kane listened intently, his expression unreadable. When Vincent finished, Kane turned to his team, engaging in a hushed discussion. After what felt like an eternity, Kane faced Vincent again. "All right, Cook, we'll take you to our base, but if this turns out to be a trap, you'll both wish the Brunali had found you instead." The group moved swiftly through the tunnels, eventually emerging into a cavernous space that had once been a busy subway station. Now it bustled with a different kind of activity as survivors scurried about, fortifying defenses and tending to the wounded. Kane led them to a makeshift medical bay, where Vox was carefully placed on a cot. A haggard-looking doctor began examining her, his initial reluctance giving way to professional curiosity as he noted her unique physiology. While Vox received treatment, Vincent briefed Kane and his lieutenants on everything he had learned. The seasoned soldiers listened intently, their faces growing grim as they grasped the full extent of the Brunali threat. "If what you're saying is true," Kane said, running a hand through his graying hair, "we might actually have a chance, but we need to get this information to command ASAP." Before they could formulate a plan, alarms blared throughout the station. A young soldier burst into the room, panic etched across his face. "Sergeant, we've detected Brunali signals closing in fast. They're using some kind of new tracking tech." Kane sprang into action, barking orders to his team. "Looks like your girlfriend's ex-fiancé isn't giving up easily," he growled at Vincent. "We need to move, now." As they prepared to evacuate, Vincent returned to Vox's side. Her eyes fluttered open, still glazed with pain, but more alert than before. "Vincent," she whispered, "I need to tell you something. My father, he's here." Vincent's blood ran cold. "Your father? You mean—" "Hi, General Zex," Vox confirmed, her voice barely audible. "He's come to oversee the final phase personally, and he's brought something terrible, a weapon called the Void Catalyst." Before Vincent could press for more details, Kane appeared beside them. "We've got to go. There's a human enclave under attack nearby. We're going to try and help them while creating a diversion for our main evacuation." Vincent hesitated, torn between the need to deliver their intelligence and the urge to help those in immediate danger. Vox gripped his hand weakly. "Go," she urged. "I'll be safe here. You can save them." With a nod to Kane, Vincent grabbed his gear and joined the rescue team. As they moved out, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something far more dangerous than a simple rescue mission. The streets above were a war zone. Brunali energy weapons crisscrossed the sky, illuminating the ruins of once towering skyscrapers. Kane's team moved with practiced efficiency, using the debris as cover as they approached the besieged human position. As they drew closer, Vincent felt a strange sensation coursing through his body. His senses seemed sharper, his reflexes quicker. When a Brunali patrol suddenly appeared, Vincent found himself moving with inhuman speed, dodging energy blasts and taking down 3 aliens before the others could even raise their weapons. Kane stared at him in disbelief. "What the hell was that, Cook?" Vincent shook his head, equally stunned. "I don't know. I've never moved like that before." They had no time to dwell on it as they pushed forward to the human enclave. The defenders were barely holding out, their primitive weapons no match for Brunali technology. Vincent and Kane's team turned the tide, their surprise attack driving back the alien forces. As the dust settled, Vincent scanned the battlefield, an uneasy feeling gnawing at his gut. The Brunali retreat had been too quick, too organized. This wasn't over. His suspicions were confirmed moments later as a massive energy surge lit up the sky. A sleek, deadly-looking craft descended from the clouds, its design unlike anything they had seen before. As it touched down, a tall, imposing figure emerged, flanked by a squad of elite Brunali soldiers. Kane's face paled. "That's no ordinary ship. That's a command vessel." Vincent's eyes locked onto the leader, noting the familial resemblance to Vox. This had to be High General Zex, and at his side, eyes burning with murderous intent, stood Commander Krav. As the two forces faced each other across the battle-scarred street, Vincent realized that the true test of humanity's persistence and his own newfound abilities was only just beginning. Vincent's eyes locked onto High General Zex, noting the familial resemblance to Vox, At his side stood Commander Krav, his gaze burning with murderous intent. The two forces faced each other across the battle-scarred street, tension crackling in the air like electricity. Without warning, the Brunali opened fire. Vincent's world exploded into chaos as energy blasts sizzled past, superheating the air. He dove for cover behind a crumbling wall, his heart pounding. But as he moved, he felt that strange sensation again, his senses sharpening, time seeming to slow. An alien soldier appeared in his peripheral vision, weapon raised. Vincent reacted instinctively, his body moving with inhuman speed. He closed the distance in a heartbeat, disarming the Brunali with a swift strike and taking him down with a series of expertly placed blows. The alien crumpled, unconscious before he hit the ground. Kane stared at Vincent, wide-eyed. "How the hell did you—" "No time!" Vincent shouted, already moving to engage the next threat. His enhanced reflexes allowed him to weave through the barrage of energy blasts, closing in on the Brunali positions with terrifying efficiency. As Vincent carved a path through the alien forces, Kane rallied the human survivors. "Fall back to that building," he ordered, pointing to a partially collapsed structure nearby. "Move it, people!" The humans retreated under heavy fire, Vincent providing cover with his superhuman display of combat prowess. He ducked, rolled, and struck with precision, each movement flowing seamlessly into the next. Brunali soldiers fell before him, their advanced weaponry rendered useless against his speed and skill. Just as it seemed they might gain the upper hand, a familiar voice cut through the din of battle. "It's a trap!" Commander Krav's voice boomed, amplified by his combat suit. "Surround them!" From the ruins around them, a second wave of Brunali forces emerged. Vincent's heart sank as he realized they were now caught in a pincer movement, outnumbered and outgunned. "Vincent!" Kane's voice crackled over the comm. "We're pinned down. We need an exit now." Vincent scanned the battlefield, his enhanced senses taking in every detail. He spotted a weak point in the Brunali line, a gap between two squads that could be exploited, but reaching it would require drawing heavy fire. "I'll create a diversion," Vincent replied. "Get ready to move on my signal." Without waiting for a response, Vincent burst from cover. He zigzagged across the open ground, his movement so fast he appeared almost to teleport. Brunali energy weapons tracked him, filling the air with deadly beams that always seemed to be just a fraction of a second behind. As the alien forces focused their fire on Vincent, Kane seized the opportunity. "Now! Go! Go! Go!" The human survivors sprinted for the gap Vincent had identified, Kane bringing up the rear and providing covering fire. They reached the relative safety of the collapsed building just as Vincent's luck began to run out. An energy blast grazed his arm, sending white-hot pain lancing through his body. Vincent stumbled, momentarily disoriented. In that instant, Commander Krav struck. The Brunali leader charged forward, his combat suit giving him enhanced strength and speed that nearly matched Vincent's own. Their battle was a blur of motion, fists and feet striking with devastating force. Vincent found himself hard-pressed to keep up, Krav's rage and advanced technology pushing him to his limits. As they fought, a new sound cut through the chaos, the whine of a Brunali mech powering up. Vincent's heart leapt to his throat. Had enemy reinforcements arrived? But the mech's weapons didn't target the humans. Instead, it opened fire on the Brunali forces, scattering them with heavy plasma bolts. "Vincent!" a familiar voice called out over the mech's external speakers. "Get clear!" Vox. Somehow she had made it to the battlefield and hijacked a Brunali war machine. Vincent didn't waste time questioning their good fortune. He disengaged from Krav with a powerful kick, sending the Brunali commander stumbling backward. As Vox provided covering fire, Vincent regrouped with Kane and the other survivors. The sergeant's expression was a mix of disbelief and grudging respect. "Your alien girlfriend's full of surprises," he muttered. "She's not my—" Vincent began, but a massive explosion cut him off. A Brunali dropship screamed overhead, deploying a fresh squad of elite soldiers. At their head strode an imposing figure in gleaming armor. Colonel Draz, one of the Brunali's most feared field commanders. Draz's gaze fixed on the hijacked mech. "The aberration," he snarled. "Capture her alive. Her abilities must be studied. Vincent's blood ran cold. He knew what the Brunali did to test subjects. "Vox," he shouted, "get out of there!" But Vox stood her ground, using the mech's weapons to hold off the advancing Brunali forces. Her bravery was buying time for the human survivors to retreat, but at great personal risk. Vincent fought his way back through the Brunali lines, his body moving with a grace and power he never knew he possessed. Elite alien soldiers fell before him, their advanced training no match for his augmented abilities. He reached Vox just as a barrage of heavy weapons fire overwhelmed the mech's shields. The machine sparked and shuddered, smoke pouring from ruptured joints. "Vox," Vincent called, "we have to go." The mech's cockpit opened with a hiss of escaping air. Vox tumbled out, weak but alive. Vincent caught her, cradling her slight form against his chest. Her skin was hot to the touch, feverish. "My father," Vox gasped. "He's here, the weapon." Before she could finish, the damaged mech exploded. The shockwave sent Vincent and Vox flying, along with the nearest Brunali soldiers. They landed hard amidst a shower of debris and twisted metal. Ears ringing, vision blurred, Vincent staggered to his feet. He pulled Vox up, supporting her weight as they limped toward Kane's position. The sergeant provided covering fire, his rifle spitting a steady stream of projectiles that kept the dazed Brunali at bay. As they reached relative safety, Kane's comm crackled to life. His face paled as he listened to the incoming transmission. "What is it?" Vincent asked, setting Vox down gently. Kane's expression was grim. "That was HQ. They intercepted a Brunali communication, something about a superweapon called the Void Catalyst. They're preparing to deploy it." Vox's eyes widened in fear. "The research facility," she whispered. "That's where they're finishing it. We have to stop them." Vincent looked from Vox to Kane, then to the battered survivors of the human enclave. A decision crystallized in his mind. "Kane," he said, "can you get these people to safety?" The sergeant nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. "You're going after the weapon." "Someone has to," Vincent replied. "And Vox knows their systems. We might be able to sabotage it." Kane was silent for a long moment. Then he reached into his pack and pulled out a data chip. "Coordinates for a hidden resistance outpost," he explained. "They can give you supplies, intel, whatever you need." Vincent took the chip, nodding his thanks. Kane's expression softened as he glanced at Vox. "Take care of each other," he said gruffly, "and good luck, you're going to need it." As Kane led the survivors away, Vincent helped Vox to her feet. She leaned against him, still weak but determined. "The facility isn't far," she said, "but it will be heavily guarded." Vincent managed a grim smile. "Then we'll just have to be clever." He paused, looking down at her. "Are you sure about this? You've already risked so much." Vox met his gaze, her alien eyes filled with a very human persistence. "This is my fight too," she said softly. "Let's go." Together they set out into the ruins of New York, leaving the sounds of battle behind them. Ahead lay the Brunali research facility, and within it, the key to Earth's salvation, or its ultimate destruction. The fate of two worlds now rested on the shoulders of a human soldier and an alien outcast, united by a cause greater than either of them. As they picked their way through the debris-strewn streets, Vincent couldn't shake the feeling that their greatest challenges still lay ahead. But with Vox at his side and his newfound abilities thrumming through his veins, he allowed himself to feel something he hadn't experienced in a long time. Hope. Hope. As they moved through the shadows of the ruined city, Vincent felt the weight of their mission bearing down on him. The Brunali research facility loomed ahead, a fortress of alien technology guarding humanity's potential doom. Vox's breath came in short gasps as she struggled to keep pace. "We're close," she whispered, her alien eyes gleaming in the darkness. "The main entrance is heavily guarded, but I know a maintenance access point that should be less defended." Vincent nodded, his enhanced senses on high alert. They crept forward, using the debris-strewn landscape for cover. As they approached the facility's perimeter, Vincent marveled at Vox's knowledge. She guided them past sensor arrays and automated defenses with practiced ease. "Here," Vox said, indicating a nondescript panel set into the facility's outer wall. Her fingers danced across its surface, inputting a complex sequence of commands. The panel slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a narrow maintenance tunnel. They squeezed inside, the tunnel barely large enough for Vincent's broad shoulders. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and unfamiliar chemicals. As they navigated the cramped space, Vincent's enhanced hearing picked up voices echoing from somewhere ahead. Final calibrations on the singularity matrix, a Brunali scientist was saying. The void catalyst will be fully operational within the next solar cycle. Excellent, another voice replied. High Command has already selected the first target. The human resistance won't know what hit them. Vincent and Vox exchanged a grim look. They needed to move fast. The maintenance tunnel opened into a dimly lit corridor. Vox took point, her intimate knowledge of Brunali facility layouts guiding them through the maze-like structure. They passed laboratories filled with strange equipment and holding cells that Vincent forced himself not to examine too closely. Finally, they reached a heavily reinforced door. The central control room, Vox whispered. If we can access their systems from here, we might be able to gather critical data on the void catalyst. Vincent stood guard as Vox worked on bypassing the door's security. Inside, banks of alien computers hummed with almost unchecked power. Vox immediately set to work, her fingers flying across the unfamiliar interfaces. I'm in, she announced after several tense minutes. Downloading data now. Vincent peered over her shoulder at the streams of alien text and diagrams. What are we looking at? Vox's expression was grim. It's worse than we thought. The void catalyst doesn't just destroy its targets, it erases them from existence, creates localized singularities that swallow everything in their radius. A chill ran down Vincent's spine. How do we stop it? Before Vox could answer, the sound of approaching footsteps echoed from the corridor. Vincent's muscles tensed, his body instinctively shifting into a combat stance. The door slid open, revealing a patrol of Brunali guards. For a heartbeat, both sides froze in surprise. Then all hell broke loose. Vincent moved with inhuman speed, closing the distance before the guards could even raise their weapons. His fist connected with the lead guard's faceplate, shattering it and sending the alien crumpling to the ground. He spun, using the momentum to deliver a devastating kick to another guard's midsection. Energy weapons discharged, filling the air with the scent of ozone. Vincent weaved through the barrage, his augmented reflexes allowing him to anticipate and avoid each blast. He disarmed one guard with a swift strike to the wrist, then used the alien's own weapon to incapacitate the remaining attackers. In the space of a few heartbeats, all 5 guards lay unconscious or groaning on the floor. Vox stared at Vincent, her alien features a mix of awe and concern. Your abilities, they're growing stronger. Vincent looked down at his hands, marveling at the raw power he now possessed. We can figure that out later. Right now, we need to... A high-pitched whine cut him off as the facility's alarms blared to life. Red emergency lights bathed the corridor in an eerie glow. We've been compromised, Vox said, her voice tight with urgency. We need to move, now. They sprinted through the facility's winding corridors, the sound of pursuing guards growing closer with each passing moment. Vincent's enhanced senses allowed him to anticipate threats, guiding them away from larger patrols and toward less defended areas. As they rounded a corner, they collided with a lone Brunali, sending all 3 sprawling to the ground. Vincent was on his feet in an instant, ready to neutralize the new threat, but Vox's hand on his arm stayed his attack. Wait, she cried. I know him. Dr. Laris? The Brunali scientist scrambled backwards, his eyes wide with fear. Vox, what are you doing here? We're trying to stop the void catalyst, Vox explained quickly. Can you help us? Dr. Laris hesitated, conflict clear on his alien features. Then, with a resigned sigh, he nodded. I've seen what that weapon can do. It's an abomination. Follow me. I know a way to sabotage it. As they raced through the facility, Dr. Laris explained the void catalyst's vulnerabilities. The power core is unstable, he said. If we can introduce the right kind of energy fluctuation, we might be able to render it inert. Their path led them to a massive hangar bay. And there, dominating the center of the room, stood the Void Catalyst. It was a towering monstrosity of alien technology, crackling with almost unchecked energy. But they weren't alone. Colonel Draz and a squad of elite Brunelli soldiers stood between them and the weapon. "Traitors and aberrations," Draz snarled, his gaze fixed on Vox. "You will not interfere with our great work." Vincent stepped forward, placing himself between Vox and the Brunelli forces. "You want her?" he growled. "You'll have to go through me." The hangar erupted into chaos. Vincent charged forward, his augmented abilities allowing him to close the distance within human speed. He engaged multiple Brunelli elites simultaneously, his movements a blur of precision strikes and impossible dodges. Vox and Dr. Laris used the distraction to make their way to the Void Catalyst's control systems. As Vox interfaced with the alien technology, her eyes widened in shock. "Vincent," she called out, "I can redirect the weapon's energy, but the feedback could kill me." Vincent fought his way to her side, providing cover as she worked. "There has to be another way," he insisted, desperation clear in his voice. Before Vox could respond, a new voice boomed through the hangar. "The aberration must not be allowed to interfere." Commander Krav had arrived with reinforcements, his forces beginning to breach the outer defenses. Dr. Laris sprinted to a nearby console. "I'm initiating a facility-wide lockdown," he shouted. "It will trap Draz and his forces inside, but it will trap us too," Vincent finished grimly. As the massive blast doors began to seal, Vincent's mind raced. They had the intel they needed, but no way to escape with it. Unless... His gaze fell on a row of sleek pod-like devices along one wall. Experimental teleporters, Vox had mentioned earlier. Untested, dangerous. But what choice did they have? "Vox, Laris," Vincent called out. "To me, now." They fought their way to the teleportation chamber, pursued by both Draz's trapped forces and Krav's incoming strike team. As they reached the devices, Vox gasped, her connection to the Void Catalyst revealing one final shocking piece of information. "Vincent," she said, her voice shaking, "the weapon's core, it's made from something human." Before Vincent could process the implications of this revelation, the sound of approaching forces snapped him back to the present. He slammed his hand down on the teleporter's activation panel. Energy crackled around them as the device hummed to life. Vincent felt a pulling sensation, as if every atom of his body was being stretched to its limit. Then, with a flash of blinding light, the world dissolved around them. Vincent, Vox, and Dr. Laris found themselves suspended in a sea of swirling energy. The very fabric of reality seemed to bend and twist around them. Vincent reached out, struggling to hold on to Vox and Laris, as the forces of teleportation threatened to tear them apart. In that moment, suspended between destinations, the fate of two worlds hung in the balance. The information they carried about the Void Catalyst and its mysterious human connection could turn the tide of the war, if they survived. As the energy intensified, Vincent closed his eyes and held on tight, hoping against hope that they would emerge on the other side, together and in one piece. Peace. Reality snapped back into focus with jarring abruptness. Vincent found himself sprawled on cracked pavement, his enhanced senses overwhelmed by a cacophony of input. The acrid stench of smoke and decay filled his nostrils as he pushed himself to his feet, muscles tensed for action. He was alone. Panic gripped him as he scanned his surroundings. Vox and Dr. Laris were nowhere to be seen. The experimental teleporter had malfunctioned, scattering them to unknown locations. Vincent stood in the outskirts of what had once been a thriving human city, now reduced to skeletal ruins by the Brunelli invasion. His augmented hearing picked up the distinctive whine of Brunelli hover vehicles, a patrol closing fast. Vincent's body moved on instinct, enhanced reflexes carrying him into the shadow of a collapsed building, just as the alien craft rounded the corner. He held his breath, pressing against cold concrete as the patrol passed within meters of his position. The Brunelli soldiers scanned the area with methodical precision, their alien features impassive behind reflective visors. As the patrol moved on, Vincent allowed himself a moment to process the situation. He needed to find Vox and Laris, but he had no way to track them. More pressingly, he was deep in enemy territory with no backup and limited resources. A distant explosion drew his attention. Vincent's enhanced vision zoomed in on a plume of smoke rising from the city center. Something was happening there, something that didn't fit the usual patterns of the occupation. Trusting his instincts, Vincent began to move toward the disturbance. He stuck to the shadows, using his augmented abilities to avoid Brunali patrols with ease. As he drew closer to the source of the commotion, he began to hear the unmistakable sounds of combat. Rounding a corner, Vincent stumbled upon a fierce firefight. A small group of human resistance fighters were pinned down by a Brunali assault team. The humans were putting up a valiant fight, but they were clearly outgunned and outmaneuvered. Vincent didn't hesitate. He charged into the fray, moving faster than any normal human could hope to match. The first Brunali soldier barely had time to register the blur of movement before Vincent's fist connected with its faceplate, shattering the alien material. The resistance fighters watched in awe as Vincent tore through the Brunali ranks. His augmented strength allowed him to rip alien weapons from their hands, while his enhanced reflexes let him dodge energy blasts with uncanny precision. In a matter of minutes, the Brunali assault team lay broken and unconscious. Vincent turned to face the resistance fighters, hands raised in a gesture of peace. A woman stepped forward, her scarred face a map of hard-won survival. She leveled a pulse rifle at Vincent's chest. "Who or what are you?" she demanded. "My name is Vincent," he replied calmly. "I'm human, just enhanced. Part of a project called Prometheus. I'm looking for my friends. We got separated during a teleportation accident." The woman's eyes narrowed. Prometheus? That was just a rumor. A fairy tale of super soldiers to keep up morale. She studied Vincent for a long moment before lowering her weapon. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen. If you're really what you say you are, we could use your help." Vincent nodded. "I'll do what I can, but I need to find my companions. One's named Vox, she's Brunali, but she's on our side. The other is Dr. Laris, another Brunali defector." Captain Chen's expression hardened at the mention of Brunali allies, but she nodded curtly. "We've got a base not far from here. We can talk more there and maybe pick up some intel on your friends." As they moved through the ruins, Vincent filled Chen in on the Void Catalyst and their mission to stop it. The captain listened intently, her face growing grimmer with each new revelation. Their path took them through a labyrinth of collapsed buildings and hastily constructed barricades. Vincent marveled at the ingenuity of the resistance, using the very rubble of their destroyed cities as camouflage and protection. They arrived at a nondescript entrance hidden beneath a mountain of debris. Chen led them through a series of checkpoints, each more heavily guarded than the last. Finally, they emerged into a cavernous underground chamber that hummed with activity. "Welcome to Haven," Chen said, gesturing to the bustling base. "One of the last strongholds of free humanity." Vincent took in the sight of hundreds of resistance fighters preparing weapons, poring over maps and manning communication stations. It was a far cry from the scattered, demoralized remnants he had expected. Chen guided him to a central command area. "Now," she said, her voice all business, "let's see if we can find your friends." As they began to work, alarms suddenly blared throughout the base. A frantic voice came over the comms. "Multiple Brunali outposts going dark. Some kind of coordinated attack. But it's not us." Chen turned to Vincent, her expression a mix of hope and suspicion. "Your Brunali friend, Vox. Could this be her?" Vincent felt a surge of both relief and concern. "It's possible, but we need to find her before the Brunali do." Little did Vincent know, Vox was closer than he realized. And she wasn't alone. As he and Chen prepared to venture out, Vox was leading her army of repurposed human drones ever closer to their position. The scattered pieces were beginning to converge. But so too were the Brunali forces, their final assault looming on the horizon. In a Brunali command center far above the ruined Earth, Commander Krav knelt before a holographic projection of High General Zex. The general's alien features were twisted with rage. "You have failed us, Krav," Zex snarled. "The Void Catalyst's security has been compromised. The aberration and her human pet must be eliminated. Krav bowed his head lower. It will be done, High General. I have deployed our anti-Promethean unit. They will not escape us again. As Krav rose to carry out his orders, a junior officer approached with a report. The officer's eyes widened as he read the information. Commander, he said, his voice trembling, we've detected a massive surge of activity in Sector 7. Multiple outposts have gone dark, and we're tracking a swarm of human combat drones? Krav's fist clenched. It seems the aberration has some new tricks. Redirect the anti-Promethean unit to intercept, and prepare the Void Catalyst for immediate deployment. It's time to end this. As the Brunali war machine ground into motion, the scattered heroes raced against time. Vincent and Captain Chen prepared to leave Haven in search of Vox. Dr. Laris worked frantically with human resistance cells, piecing together the shocking truth of Project Janus. And Vox herself, now a vengeful ghost in the machine, led her drone army ever closer to reunion and revelation. The storm was gathering. The final battle for Earth's future loomed, with the fate of two worlds hanging in the balance. Vincent's enhanced senses picked up the telltale hum of energy long before they reached their destination. The Void Catalyst loomed ahead, a massive structure pulsing with an otherworldly glow. Vox tensed beside him, her eyes fixed on the alien technology. We need to disable it, Vincent said, his voice low. Any ideas? Vox nodded, her expression determined. I can interface with its systems, but I'll need you to get me close enough, and to keep the Brunali off my back while I work. They approached cautiously, using the ruins for cover. As they drew near, Vincent's augmented hearing picked up the sound of approaching hover vehicles. He grabbed Vox's arm, pulling her behind a fallen pillar just as a patrol rounded the corner. Krav, Vincent growled, recognizing the commander's distinctive armor. And he's brought friends. The anti-Promethean unit fanned out, their weapons trained on the Void Catalyst. Vincent's muscles tensed, ready for action. He locked eyes with Vox, a silent understanding passing between them. In a blur of motion, Vincent burst from cover. He closed the distance to the nearest Brunali soldier in seconds, his augmented strength allowing him to rip the alien weapon from its hands. The other soldiers opened fire, but Vincent's enhanced reflexes let him dance between energy blasts with inhuman grace. Vox used the distraction to sprint towards the Void Catalyst. Her fingers splayed across its surface, eyes closing as she interfaced with its complex systems. The alien technology resisted her probing, but Vox pushed harder, her abilities amplified by her earlier exposure during the teleportation incident. Commander Krav's voice cut through the chaos. The aberration must not be allowed to tamper with the weapon. Eliminate them both. The anti-Promethean unit surged forward, their specialized equipment proving a significant challenge even for Vincent's augmented abilities. He ducked under a swing that would have taken his head off, retaliating with a punch that sent the Brunali soldier flying. But for every enemy he downed, two more seemed to take their place. A lucky shot grazed Vincent's arm, leaving a searing burn. He gritted his teeth, pushing through the pain. Just when it seemed they might be overwhelmed, a familiar voice crackled over Vincent's comm unit. Cavalry's here, super soldier. Try not to get shot. Captain Sarah Chen and her resistance fighters poured into the area, their weapons blazing. The human soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, providing crucial support against the Brunali forces. Chen herself appeared at Vincent's side, her scarred face set in a grim smile. Thought you could use a hand, she said, firing her pulse rifle at an approaching Brunali. Your friend Laris filled us in on the situation. As if on cue, Dr. Laris's voice came through their comms. Vox, can you hear me? I'm analyzing the catalyst systems remotely. There's something you need to know about its core. Vox's reply was strained, her focus split between the interface and Laris's words. What is it? The human origin material. It's an isotope called novium. It was mined on Earth by Project Janus before the invasion. Vincent, overhearing this as he fought, felt a chill run down his spine. Project Janus? But that means... His thoughts were interrupted by a bone-jarring impact. Commander Krav had joined the fray, his augmented strength nearly a match for Vincent's own. They grappled, neither able to gain the upper hand. "You cannot stop what is coming, human," Krav snarled. "The void catalyst will cleanse this world of your kind." As if triggered by his words, the superweapon began to power up. The air around them shimmered with visible distortions, the very fabric of reality seeming to warp. Vincent knew they were out of time. With a roar of effort, he broke free from Krav's grasp and charged towards the void catalyst. Using every ounce of his augmented strength, he hit his fists into its outer shell, creating a spiderweb of cracks. "Vox, now!" Understanding his intent, Vox plunged her hands into the opening Vincent had created. Her eyes went wide as she made direct contact with the catalyst's core systems. The mental battle that ensued was unlike anything Vox had experienced before. The Void Catalyst's AI defenses were formidable, but her enhanced abilities allowed her to navigate its labyrinthine systems. Yet with each passing second, the strain on her body increased. Vincent stood guard over her vulnerable form, fending off attacks from all sides. His injuries were mounting, but he refused to yield. Captain Chen and her forces had pushed back the main Brunali contingent, but Krav and his anti-Promethean unit remained a deadly threat. As the Void Catalyst neared full power, Vox made a breakthrough. "I can redirect its energy," she shouted, her voice tight with pain. "But the feedback, it's too much." Vincent didn't hesitate. He placed himself between Vox and the weapon's core, using his augmented body as a living conduit. The energy surged through him, every nerve ending screaming in agony. But something unexpected happened. The Void Catalyst energy didn't just flow through Vincent. It seemed to resonate with his augmentations. His senses sharpened beyond anything he'd experienced before. His strength multiplied exponentially. With a primal yell, Vincent turned to face the remaining Brunali forces. He moved faster than the eye could track, dismantling the anti-Promethean unit with terrifying efficiency. Even Commander Krav, for all his enhancements, couldn't stand against this new, supercharged Vincent. The battle reached its crescendo as Vox, with one final push, redirected the Void Catalyst's energy. A blinding pillar of light shot into the sky, harmlessly dissipating in the upper atmosphere. The Brunali warship, suddenly bereft of its primary weapon, began a hasty retreat. As the light faded, Vincent collapsed to his knees. His body smoked from the energy that had coursed through it, every movement causing fresh waves of pain. Vox, barely conscious herself, crawled to his side. "You idiot," she whispered, her voice a mixture of affection and worry. "You could have been killed." Vincent managed a weak smile. "Couldn't let you have all the fun." Captain Chen approached, her expression a mix of awe and concern. "We need to get you both to a medical facility. More Promethean units are inbound to secure the area." As they were helped to their feet, Dr. Laris's voice came through once more. "The data we've gathered, it changes everything. The collaboration between Project Janus and the Brunali goes deeper than we ever imagined." Vincent and Vox exchanged a weary glance. They had won this battle, but the war and its mysteries were far from finished. As they were led away from the battlefield, neither noticed the small drone that had been observing the entire confrontation. In a Brunali command center, light years away, High General Zex watched the footage with cold fury. "This isn't over," he growled to his subordinates. "Prepare for the next phase. We will not be denied our prize." Destiny. The general's hologram flickered out, leaving the Brunali command center in tense silence. Vincent's eyes fluttered open, his vision slowly coming into focus. The sterile white ceiling of the medical bay greeted him, a far cry from the chaotic battlefield where he had last been conscious. He tried to sit up, wincing as pain lanced through his body. "Easy there, super soldier," a familiar voice said. Vox's face appeared in his field of vision, her expression a mixture of relief and concern. "You took quite a beating out there." Vincent managed a weak smile. "Feels like it. How long was I out?" 3 days, Vox replied, helping him into a sitting position. "Your augmentations have been working overtime to repair the damage." The doctors were impressed. As Vincent's senses sharpened, he became aware of a low hum of activity beyond the medical bay. "What's happening out there?" he asked, his enhanced hearing picking up raised voices and hurried footsteps. Vox's expression darkened. A lot. Dr. Laris and Captain Chen made some discoveries about Project Janus. It's complicated. Before she could elaborate, the door slid open, revealing Dr. Laris and Captain Chen. The doctor's face lit up at the sight of Vincent awake, but Chen's expression remained grim. "Good to see you up, Vincent," Laris said, approaching with a medical scanner. "How are you feeling?" "Like I went 10 rounds with a Brunali war machine," Vincent replied, submitting to the scan. "But I'll live. What's this about Project Janus?" Chen stepped forward, her scarred face set in hard lines. "We've uncovered evidence of human collaboration with the Brunali before the invasion. High-level collaboration." The news hit Vincent like a physical blow. "That's impossible. Who would—" "General Alexandra Hawthorne," Chen cut in, her voice tight with anger. "The head of Earth's military and overseer of Project Prometheus." Vincent felt as if the floor had dropped out from under him. General Hawthorne had been a symbol of human resistance, a beacon of hope in dark times. The implications of her betrayal were staggering. "There's more," Laris added, his eyes darting nervously between Vincent and Vox. "The human origin material in the Void Catalyst, the Novium, it was mined on Earth by Project Janus before the invasion." Vox's hand found Vincent's, squeezing it tightly. "This changes everything," she said softly. A commotion in the hallway drew their attention. Through the open door, they could see resistance fighters arguing heatedly, their voices rising in anger. "The resistance is fracturing," Chen explained, her hand unconsciously moving to her weapon. "Some are calling for Hawthorne's immediate arrest. Others are defending her. We're on the brink of civil war." Vincent swung his legs over the side of the bed, ignoring the protest of his healing body. "We need to do something. The Brunali—" As if summoned by his words, alarms began blaring throughout the base. A frantic voice came over the intercom. "Multiple bogies incoming! New Brunali ship design detected!" Chen's comm unit crackled to life. "Captain, we're detecting a fleet of smaller, faster ships. They're equipped with some kind of scaled-down Void Catalyst tech. They're calling them Void Strikers." "Zex!" Vox hissed, her eyes narrowing. "He's not giving up." Vincent stood steadying himself against the bed. "We need to stop them. If they have Void Catalyst tech, they could wipe out our remaining strongholds." Laris looked at him incredulously. "You're in no condition to fight, Vincent. Your body needs time to—" "We don't have time," Vincent cut him off. He turned to Vox, their eyes meeting in silent communication. "We need to take the fight to them. Infiltrate their command ship. Gather intel on these Void Strikers." Vox nodded, a fierce smile spreading across her face. "I was hoping you'd say that." Chen studied them both, her tactical mind weighing the risks and potential rewards. Finally, she nodded. "It's our best shot. I'll clear it with command." As Chen left to make arrangements, Laris approached with a small case. "If you're going through with this insane plan, you'll need these," he said, opening the case to reveal sleek, alien-looking devices. "Reverse-engineered Brunali stealth tech. And this," he held up a small, pulsing orb, "should let you hack into their secure networks." Vincent took the devices, feeling their weight in his hands. "Thank you, Doctor, for everything." As they prepared for the mission, donning the stealth gear and checking their weapons, Vincent couldn't shake a sense of foreboding. The revelation about Project Janus and General Hawthorne had shaken him to his core. How deep did the conspiracy go? What other secrets lay buried in humanity's recent past? Vox seemed to sense his unease. As they made their way to the hangar where a captured Brunali shuttle waited, she placed a hand on his arm. "Whatever happens up there," she said softly, "whatever we discover, we face it together." Vincent nodded, drawing strength from her presence. As they boarded the shuttle, he caught glimpses of the chaos engulfing the base. Resistance fighters argued and scuffled, their unity fractured by the recent revelations. He knew that their mission was about more than just gathering intelligence. It was about giving humanity a fighting chance. The shuttle's engines hummed to life, and Vincent took the controls. As they lifted off, leaving the turmoil of the base behind, he set his jaw in purpose. Whatever lay ahead, whatever secrets they uncovered or battles they faced, he knew one thing for certain. The fate of two worlds now rested in their hands. The Brunali shuttle streaked through the atmosphere, its stolen stealth technology masking their ascent from Earth's increasingly fractious defenses. As they broke through into the inky blackness of space, Vincent and Vox were confronted with a chilling sight. Thousands of Brunali ships hung in orbit, a vast armada that dwarfed anything humanity had faced before. Among them, they could make out the sleeker, more agile forms of the Void Strikers, dozens of them, preparing for their deadly mission. "By the stars," Vox breathed, her eyes wide as she took in the scale of the invasion force. "How can we possibly—" "One step at a time," Vincent cut in, his hands steady on the controls, despite the gravity of their situation. "We find their command ship, we get the intel, we find a way to stop those strikers." As they approached the heart of the Brunali fleet, a massive vessel came into view. Unlike the uniform designs of the other ships, this one was a behemoth of twisting spires and pulsing energy conduits, unmistakably the command ship of High General Zex. Vincent angled their shuttle towards it, his enhanced vision picking out details of its defenses. "We've got a problem," he said, gesturing to a shimmering field surrounding the ship. "Some kind of containment barrier. If we try to pass through it—" "We'll be vaporized," Vox finished, her fingers flying over the shuttle's sensor controls. "But maybe, yes, there's a gap in the coverage. It's small, but—" "We can make it," Vincent said, already adjusting their course. "But not in this shuttle." Their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them. "Spacewalk," they said in unison. As Vincent guided the shuttle to a stop just outside the barrier's range, they began the laborious process of donning their spacesuits. The Brunali-designed gear felt alien against Vincent's skin, but he knew it was their best chance at remaining undetected. Just as they finished their preparations, a proximity alarm blared. Vincent's eyes snapped to the sensor readout, his heart sinking as he recognized the energy signature of the approaching vessel. "Krav," he growled, "he's found us." Vox's face hardened behind her helmet's faceplate. "Then we don't have much time. Ready?" Vincent nodded, his hand hovering over the airlock controls. With a hiss of escaping atmosphere, the shuttle's hatch opened to the void of space. For a moment, Vincent felt a primal fear grip him, the vast emptiness threatening to swallow him whole. But then Vox's hand found his, and together they pushed off into the abyss. Their trajectory took them on a graceful arc towards the command ship, the distances in space making their target seem deceptively close. Vincent's augmented senses worked overtime, calculating trajectories and scanning for threats. Beside him, Vox's eyes were closed in concentration, her unique abilities allowing her to interface with the Brunali ship's systems, even at this distance. As they neared the shimmering barrier, Vincent felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. The energy field crackled with deadly potential, ready to disintegrate anything that tried to pass through unauthorized. But, true to Vox's calculations, a small gap appeared, a momentary fluctuation in the field's coverage. "Now!" Vox's voice crackled in his helmet's comm. With a burst from their suit thrusters, they shot through the opening, the energy field snapping closed behind them with a silent flash of light. They had made it, but their ordeal was not nearly finished. As they drifted towards the command ship's hull, a new threat materialized. A swarm of Void Strikers began to launch, their sleek forms sliding out of the massive vessel's hangars. Vincent watched in horror as the deadly ships oriented themselves towards Earth, their scaled-down Void Catalyst weapons glowing with ominous energy. "We're out of time," he said, his voice tight with urgency. "We need to find a way inside now." Vox's reply was cut short by a burst of static in their comms. A familiar, hate-filled voice cut through the interference. "I have you now, aberrations. Surrender, and your deaths will be quick." Commander Krav's ship loomed behind them, its weapons trained on their vulnerable forms. Vincent's mind raced, searching for a way out of their impossible situation. They were so close to their goal, but with Krav at their backs and the Void Strikers launching their attack on Earth, it seemed their mission and humanity's last hope might end here, in the cold vacuum of space. Space. But Vincent refused to accept defeat. In a split-second decision, he activated his suit's emergency thrusters, propelling both himself and Vox towards the command ship's hull. "Hold on!" he shouted through the comm, his augmented muscles straining as he maneuvered them through the vacuum. They slammed into the hull with bone-jarring force, Vincent's enhanced body absorbing most of the impact. As Krav's ship opened fire, they were already in motion, scrambling across the metallic surface of the Brunali vessel. Vox's fingers danced over her suit's controls, interfacing with the ship's systems. "There!" she exclaimed, pointing to a barely visible seam in the hull. "Emergency airlock." Vincent wrenched the airlock open, his augmented strength proving invaluable as they tumbled inside just as Krav's energy blast scorched the hull where they had been moments before. As the airlock cycled, pressurizing the small chamber, Vincent and Vox shared a moment of tense silence, their heavy breathing the only sound in their comms. When the inner door slid open, they found themselves in a dimly lit corridor, the alien architecture a stark reminder of their predicament. "We need to move," Vincent whispered, his enhanced senses already picking up the distant sound of Brunali patrols. "The command center. Any idea where it might be?" Vox closed her eyes, concentrating as she tapped into the ship's systems. "Several decks up, Central Core. But Vincent, the Void Strikers, they're launching now." Through a nearby viewport, they watched in horror as the sleek, deadly ships began to pour out of the massive hangar bays, their engines flaring to life as they oriented themselves towards Earth. "We're out of time," Vincent growled, his mind focused. "Let's move." They made their way through the twisting corridors of the Brunali ship, Vincent's augmented senses allowing them to avoid most of the patrols. When confrontation was unavoidable, they worked in perfect tandem, Vincent's enhanced combat skills complemented by Vox's ability to manipulate the ship's systems, creating distractions or sealing off sections to impede pursuit. As they neared the Central Core, alarms began to blare throughout the ship. "They've detected us!" Vox hissed, her fingers flying over a nearby control panel. "I'm trying to mask our signatures, but—" "Too late," Vincent interrupted, his enhanced hearing picking up the sound of approaching troops. "We need to find another way." Vox's eyes lit up as she accessed a schematic of the ship. "Maintenance shafts, they run throughout the entire vessel. If we can access one, we might be able to reach the command center undetected." Vincent nodded, already scanning the corridor for access points. He spotted a nondescript panel and pried it open, revealing a cramped tunnel beyond. "Ladies first," he said with a grim smile. They crawled through the claustrophobic confines of the maintenance shaft, the distant sounds of the Brunali search parties echoing through the metal walls. After what felt like hours of navigating the labyrinthine network, they finally emerged into a vast, cavernous space. The command center of the Brunali ship was a marvel of alien technology. Holographic displays filled the air, showing the positions of the Void Strikers as they descended towards Earth. Brunali officers moved with purpose between control stations, their attention focused on the impending attack. "There," Vox whispered, pointing to a central console. "That's where we'll find the data on the Void Strikers." They moved silently across the chamber, using the banks of equipment as cover. When they reached the console, Vox immediately began to interface with it, her eyes closed in concentration as she sifted through the vast amounts of data. Vincent stood guard, his enhanced senses on high alert for any sign of discovery. He watched the holographic displays with growing dread as the Void Strikers entered Earth's atmosphere, their deadly payloads primed for release. "Vox," he urged, "we're running out of time." I know," she muttered, her brow furrowed in concentration. "But there's something else here. Something about Project Janus. It's... oh, stars above." Before she could elaborate, alarms blared throughout the command center. Commander Krav's voice boomed over the ship's communication system. "Intruders detected in the command center. All units converge." "We need to go," Vincent said, already scanning for escape routes. But Vox didn't move, her eyes wide with shock as she processed the information she had uncovered. "Vincent, you don't understand. Project Janus, it wasn't just collaboration. It was..." Her words were cut off as energy blasts erupted around them. Brunali troops poured into the command center, led by the imposing figure of Commander Krav himself. Surrender, aberrations, Krav roared, his weapon trained on them. Your pathetic resistance ends here. Vincent's mind raced, assessing their options. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and trapped in the heart of enemy territory. But as he looked at Vox, saw the purpose in her eyes and the crucial data she had uncovered, he knew surrender wasn't an option. In one fluid motion, he grabbed Vox and dove behind a nearby console just as a barrage of energy blasts tore through the air where they had been standing. The acrid smell of ozone filled the air as the command center erupted into chaos. The reactor, Vox shouted over the din of battle. If we can overload it, we might be able to stop the Void Strikers. Vincent nodded, his enhanced mind already formulating a plan. Can you guide us there? Vox's eyes unfocused for a moment as she accessed the ship's schematics. Yes, but it won't be easy. We'll have to fight our way through the heart of the ship. Then that's what we'll do, Vincent replied, his augmented muscles tensing for action. As Krav and his forces closed in, Vincent and Vox prepared to make their desperate push towards the reactor. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, and the true nature of Project Janus remained a mystery that could reshape everything they thought they knew about the war. With the Void Strikers bearing down on their homeworld and enemies on all sides, they knew that their next move could determine the future of both humanity and the Brunali. Vincent's augmented muscles strained as he pushed off from the reactor core, propelling himself and Vox towards the nearest escape pod. Alarms blared throughout the Brunali command ship, its systems going haywire from the overload they had triggered. We've got maybe 2 minutes before this whole place goes critical, Vincent shouted over the cacophony of explosions and creaking metal. Vox nodded, her eyes unfocused as she interfaced with the ship's rapidly deteriorating systems. I've unlocked all the escape pods. This way! They sprinted through the chaos, dodging falling debris and panicked Brunali crew members. Vincent's enhanced senses allowed him to navigate the collapsing corridors, pulling Vox along when necessary. They reached the escape pod bay just as another violent tremor shook the ship. Get in, Vincent yelled, practically throwing Vox into the nearest pod before leaping in after her. The hatch sealed behind them with a hiss of compressed air. Vox's fingers flew over the control panel, initiating the launch sequence. With a bone-jarring jolt, the escape pod shot out of the dying Brunali ship. Through the pod's view screen, they watched as the massive vessel's hull began to buckle and warp. Huge sections of the ship peeled away, revealing the pulsing, overloaded reactor at its core. In a blinding flash of light, the Brunali command ship detonated, the shockwave hurtling their tiny escape pod towards Earth. The Void Strikers! Vox gasped, her eyes wide as she monitored the pod's sensors. The blast! It's disabled them! Vincent allowed himself a moment of relief before the reality of their situation set in. We're not out of this yet. That explosion's electromagnetic pulse has fried half our systems. As if to emphasize his point, the escape pod's interior lights flickered and died, leaving them illuminated only by the glow of Earth growing larger in the view screen. The pod began to shudder as it hit the outer layers of the atmosphere. Heat shielding is failing, Vox reported, her voice tight with tension. We're coming in too hot. Vincent's mind raced, assessing their options. Can you get any control over our trajectory? Vox shook her head, frustration evident in her voice. Navigation's completely shot. We're in freefall. The temperature inside the pod began to rise rapidly as they plummeted through the atmosphere. Vincent could feel the heat even through his augmented skin. He looked at Vox, saw the fear in her eyes, and made a decision. I need you to guide us towards water, he said, moving to the manual controls. Use whatever sensors we have left. I'll try to adjust our angle of entry. Vox nodded, closing her eyes to focus on the pod's remaining systems. There's a large body of water, the Atlantic Ocean. If we can aim for that, we might survive the impact. Vincent grunted with exertion as he manipulated the manual controls, fighting against the forces trying to tear their pod apart. The heat was becoming unbearable, the metal of the pod's hull glowing red-hot in places. Vincent, Vox's voice was strained, the landing thrusters. I might be able to get some functionality back. Do it, Vincent growled, his enhanced muscles trembling with the effort of maintaining their trajectory. Vox's face contorted in concentration as she interfaced directly with the pod's systems, coaxing what little power remained into the landing thrusters. The pod gave a sudden lurch as the thrusters sputtered to life, providing a modicum of control to their descent. The view screen was filled with the blue expanse of the Atlantic, growing larger by the second. Vincent could see the coastline of what had once been New York City in the distance. "Brace for impact," he shouted, releasing the controls and wrapping his body around Vox. His last conscious thought was a desperate hope that his augmented physiology would be enough to protect her from the impact. The escape pod hit the water with a tremendous splash, skipping across the surface like a stone before plunging beneath the waves. The force of the impact knocked both Vincent and Vox unconscious, their limp forms held in place by the pod's emergency restraints. Water began to seep in through the damaged hull as the pod sank deeper. Just as it seemed they would be lost to the depths, the emergency buoyancy systems activated with a hiss of compressed air. The pod lurched upwards, breaking the surface and bobbing like a cork on the waves. Vincent regained consciousness first, his augmented healing already working to repair the damage from the crash. He blinked away the blood trickling from a gash on his forehead, taking in their waterlogged surroundings. Vox lay unconscious beside him, a nasty bruise forming on her temple. With a groan of effort, Vincent forced open the damaged hatch, letting in a rush of salty air. He carefully lifted Vox's unconscious form and climbed out onto the pod's hull, now half submerged in the Atlantic. The pod creaked ominously beneath them, more water flooding in by the second. Vincent scanned the horizon, his enhanced vision picking out details at impossible distances. He saw the glint of metal in the sky, Brunali shuttles, no doubt drawn by their crash. But there, skimming across the waves, was a hovercraft bearing the insignia of the human resistance. A squadron of Brunali fighters screamed overhead, engaging the human vessel in a vicious dogfight. Vincent clutched Vox tighter, his muscles coiled and ready to act. He slipped into the water, using a piece of floating debris from their pod to help keep Vox's head above water as he began to swim towards the human hovercraft. The resistance vessel's engines roared as it maneuvered through the Brunali attack, steadily making its way towards the crash site. Vincent pushed his augmented body to its limits, swimming with powerful strokes while keeping Vox secure. Just as they neared the hovercraft, Vox stirred in his arms. Her eyes snapped open, quickly assessing their situation. Without a word, she closed her eyes in concentration, interfacing with the nearby Brunali shuttles. The alien craft suddenly veered off course, their navigation systems scrambled by Vox's mental assault. The human hovercraft took advantage of the confusion, closing the distance rapidly. Vincent could see figures on the deck, reaching out to help them aboard. Relief flooded through him as he realized they were finally safe. A shadow fell over them. Vincent looked up to see a battered Brunali shuttle descending from the clouds, a familiar and hated figure visible through its view screen. Commander Krav had survived, and he wasn't about to let his prey escape. A crackling field of energy erupted from the shuttle, forming a net that began to envelope Vincent and Vox. Vincent felt the pull of the electromagnetic force, dragging them upwards towards the Brunali vessel. With one hand, he managed to grasp the edge of the human hovercraft's deck, creating a deadly tug-of-war with Krav's shuttle. "Hold on!" a voice shouted from the hovercraft. Vincent recognized Captain Chen, her face a mask of drive as she fired the vessel's weapons at Krav's shuttle. Vincent's augmented muscles screamed in protest as he fought against the pull of the energy net. He could feel his grip on the hovercraft weakening, the metal warping under his fingers. Vox looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and purpose. "I'm sorry," she whispered, and before Vincent could react, she had shifted in his grasp, placing her hands on the electromagnetic net. Vox's eyes rolled back as she interfaced directly with the Brunali technology. The net pulsed with energy, growing brighter and brighter until, with a thunderous crack, it overloaded and dissolved. The feedback traveled up the tether to Krav's shuttle, causing it to spiral out of control and crash into the ocean. The sudden release of tension sent Vincent and Vox tumbling onto the deck of the human hovercraft. Hands reached out to steady them as the vessel banked hard, speeding away from the battle zone. Vincent pulled himself to his feet, his body aching in ways he didn't think possible despite his augmentations. He helped Vox up, supporting her as she swayed unsteadily. "Are you all right?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. Vox nodded weakly, her eyes struggling to focus. "I'll live. But Vincent, the things I saw when I interfaced with the Brunali systems, Project Janus, it's not what we thought." Before she could elaborate, Captain Chen approached, her expression a mix of relief and urgency. "We need to get you two to a secure medical facility. The resistance leaders will want to debrief you immediately." As the hovercraft sped toward the coast, Vincent watched the remaining Brunali forces scattering, their coordinated attack falling apart without central leadership. The human resistance was launching counterattacks, reclaiming territory that had been lost in the initial invasion. Vincent turned back to Vox, seeing the weight of newfound knowledge in her eyes. Whatever they had uncovered about Project Janus, he knew it would change everything. The war might be turning in humanity's favor, but the true battle, the one that would determine the future of both species, was just beginning. The hovercraft docked at a hidden underground facility on the outskirts of what was once Newark. Medical personnel swarmed the deck, quickly assessing Vincent and Vox's conditions. "Get them to the trauma unit," Captain Chen ordered, her voice tight with urgency. "And notify Dr. Laris immediately." Vincent's world spun as he was transferred to a hovering gurney. His augmented body was already working overtime to heal the injuries sustained during their escape, but exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him. He reached out, grasping Vox's hand as she was placed on a gurney beside him. "Stay with me," he murmured, his enhanced senses picking up the slight tremor in her fingers. Vox nodded weakly, her eyes unfocused as she battled the after-effects of her intense neural interface with the Brunali systems. "Always," she whispered back. The medical facility was a hive of activity. Human resistance fighters mingled with a handful of Brunali defectors who had joined their cause. Vincent caught snippets of conversation as they were rushed through the corridors. Reports of Brunali forces in disarray, human counteroffensives gaining ground, theories about the true nature of Project Janus. They were brought to a state-of-the-art medical bay, a blend of human and salvage Brunali technology. Dr. Laris, a tall man with salt and pepper hair and piercing green eyes, was waiting for them. "Vincent, Vox," he greeted them, his voice calm but tinged with excitement. "We've been monitoring your vital signs since the crash. What you've accomplished is nothing short of miraculous." As the medical team worked to stabilize them, Dr. Laris explained the situation. The destruction of the Brunali command ship and the disabling of the Void Strikers had thrown the invasion into chaos. Human resistance cells worldwide were launching coordinated attacks, pushing back the alien forces. "But that's not why I'm here," Dr. Laris said, his eyes gleaming with scarcely controlled enthusiasm. "What you've discovered about Project Janus, it changes everything." Vincent tried to sit up, wincing as his body protested. "What do you mean?" Dr. Laris looked from Vincent to Vox, his expression one of wonder. "Your unique physiologies, Vincent's augmentations, and Vox's genetic mutations, they're the key to ending this war once and for all." Over the next few days, as Vincent and Vox recovered their strength, Dr. Laris explained his theory. By combining Vincent's augmented human DNA with Vox's mutated Brunali genes, they could create a stable hybrid, a perfect fusion of both species. "Imagine," Dr. Laris said, pacing excitedly in front of their recovery pods, "a new form of existence that combines the best of both humans and Brunali, enhanced physical abilities, advanced neural interfacing, accelerated healing, all without the drawbacks of either species." Vincent looked at Vox, seeing the mixture of hope and apprehension in her eyes. "Is it even possible?" he asked. Dr. Laris nodded emphatically. "With your consent, yes. We've been analyzing your genetic structures since you arrived. The compatibility is there. We just need to find the right way to merge them." Vox's voice was quiet but firm. "What are the risks?" Dr. Laris's excitement dimmed slightly. "I won't lie to you. This is uncharted territory. The procedure could be painful, and there's a chance of rejection or unforeseen complications. But if it works, Vincent finished, We could end this war and create a future where our species coexist. The decision wasn't easy. Vincent and Vox spent hours discussing the implications, weighing the potential benefits against the risks. Their experiences together, the battles fought, the trust forged in the crucible of war, had created a bond between them that transcended their species. Finally, they agreed to undergo the procedure. The day of the experiment arrived. Vincent and Vox were led to a specially prepared laboratory deep within the facility. Banks of computers hummed, their screens displaying complex genetic algorithms. In the center of the room stood two sleek pods, connected by a web of pulsing energy conduits. Dr. Laris and his team worked methodically, attaching sensors and intravenous lines to both Vincent and Vox. The air was thick with tension and anticipation. "Are you ready?" Dr. Laris asked, his finger hovering over the activation switch. Vincent reached out, clasping Vox's hand in his own. They exchanged a look that conveyed more than words ever could: trust, hope, and a shared vision of a better future. "We're ready," they said in unison. Dr. Laris nodded and began the procedure. A low hum filled the air as energy coursed through the conduits. Vincent felt a tingling sensation spreading from the points where the IV lines entered his body. Beside him, Vox's eyes were closed in concentration, her face a mask of purpose. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. Dr. Laris's head snapped up, his eyes wide with alarm. "We're under attack!" Through the lab's reinforced windows, Vincent could see flashes of weapons fire. The last desperate Brunali forces, unwilling to accept defeat, had launched a final, all-out assault on the human stronghold. "We can't stop now," Dr. Laris shouted over the chaos. "The procedure's at a critical stage." Vincent's body began to change, his muscles rippling as they reconfigured at the cellular level. He could feel Vox's consciousness brushing against his own, their minds beginning to merge along with their bodies. The lab door burst open. Commander Krav, his armor scorched and his eyes blazing with hatred, stormed in with a squad of Brunali soldiers. "This ends now," he snarled, raising his weapon. In that moment, Vincent acted on pure instinct. He tore free from the medical equipment, his body only partially transformed. With inhuman speed, he launched himself at Krav and his soldiers. The fight was brutal and chaotic. Vincent's new hybrid physiology granted him strength and agility beyond anything he'd experienced before. He moved like liquid lightning, dodging energy blasts and striking with devastating force. Vox, still connected to the equipment, reached out with her mind. The lab's systems responded to her enhanced interfacing abilities. Doors slammed shut, trapping some of Krav's soldiers out in the corridor. Defensive turrets emerged from hidden compartments, targeting the Brunali attackers. As Vincent grappled with Krav, trading blows that would have shattered ordinary bones, Vox completed her transformation. She rose from the pod, her body shimmering with a blend of human and Brunali energy. With a gesture, she created a barrier of shimmering energy, deflecting a barrage of Brunali weapons fire. Her eyes glowed with power as she manipulated the very air around them, forming it into projectiles that slammed into the attacking soldiers. Vincent and Vox moved in perfect synchronization, their partially merged minds allowing them to anticipate each other's actions. They fought back to back, a whirlwind of hybrid power that the Brunali forces couldn't hope to match. Krav, realizing the battle was lost, made a desperate lunge for the lab's main control panel. "If I can't have victory," he roared, "I'll make sure you don't either." Vincent saw Krav's intention and moved to intercept, but he knew he wouldn't make it in time. Just as Krav's hand was about to smash down on the emergency purge button, a bolt of pure energy struck him, hurling him across the room. Vox stood with her arm outstretched, wisps of energy still curling around her fingers. "It's over, Krav," she said, her voice resonating with newfound power. As the last of Krav's forces were subdued, Vincent and Vox turned to face each other. Their bodies had changed, taking on aspects of both species. Vincent's augmented muscles now rippled with lines of bioluminescent energy, while Vox's skin had taken on a subtle metallic sheen. They reached out, their hands intertwining. As they touched, a surge of energy passed between them, completing the merger that had been interrupted. Dr. Laris, who had taken cover during the fight, emerged from behind a console. His eyes were wide with wonder as he beheld Vincent and Vox in their new hybrid forms. "It worked," he breathed. "You've done it. You've become something entirely new." Vincent and Vox stood together, their merge forms a testament to the potential for peace between their species. As the sounds of battle outside began to fade, they knew that their journey was far from finished. The real work, convincing both humans and Brunali to embrace this new future, was just beginning. But as they looked at each other, their minds and bodies now inexorably linked, they felt a surge of hope. Together, they would forge a new path forward, one that could end the war and usher in an era of unprecedented cooperation and advancement. The future, uncertain but filled with possibility, awaited them.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.